In the spring of 2013, a federal agent was assigned to a case no one was supposed to know about. He had been called to interrogate a mysterious man found in Minnesota, far from highways and civilization, deep among endless pine forests and swamps. The agent was flown in from Chicago on a government plane, and as the engines faded under the heavy sky, he knew this mission would be different. The stranger had been discovered on the outskirts of a small town. He was covered in blood and entrails, yet his body was completely unharmed. No wounds, no bruises, no signs of struggle. There were no documents, no records of his existence anywhere. It was as if he had been cut out of another world and inserted into this one. When the agent arrived, he was briefed by a man in a suit who informed him that the subject had remained silent for 36 hours, showing no reaction to any attempts at communication. Toxicology results revealed no drugs, no alcohol, no trace of illness. His behavior defied logic. He had been placed in isolation and monitored constantly, waiting for him to speak. Reports showed that the man, now referred to only as the subject, possessed a remarkable intellect. He solved complex puzzles effortlessly, identified patterns no one else could see, and displayed perfect memory. Psychiatrists suggested trauma, perhaps a dissociative episode. But the agent had a different intuition. Something deeper was at play. Tests on the blood that covered him revealed something disturbing: multiple sources of DNA. Not just human, mammalian, reptilian, even traces of insects. The road from the airfield to the facility was narrow and cracked, swallowed by towering pines. Thunderclouds hung low, and raindrops tapped against the car window like a slow metronome. The vehicle stopped in front of a concrete building without signs or markings, a gray slab in a sea of green. Narrow windows, reinforced bars, bulletproof glass. To anyone passing by, it might have looked like an abandoned storage site. Inside, the air was heavy with metal and dampness. The agent surrendered all personal items, phone, badge, pen, and was escorted down a long corridor into a small interrogation chamber. The walls were concrete, the light sterile and harsh. A single metal table stood in the center of the room. There, he saw the man for the first time. He was younger than expected, clean-shaven, dressed in a plain white t-shirt and blue track pants, sitting with calm composure. There were faint bruises on his wrists where the cuffs had rested. His eyes, however, betrayed something unsettling. Not fear, not madness, but observation. He seemed to be studying the room itself, as though measuring its geometry, its air, its light. Later, the observers would note that, for a long time, neither of them moved. One studied a man, the other studied probabilities. In the following days, the man began to speak. His sentences were broken at first, almost childlike, but his tone was deliberate. It was as if he was translating thoughts from a different framework of logic. He claimed he had not known the language before and had only recently aligned himself to it. His perception of reality appeared foreign, filtered through some deeper order. He described a place where time did not flow forward but rotated, where past and future intertwined, and seconds could stretch into years or collapse into moments. In that place, he said, movement was not physical but probabilistic. To survive there, one must sense which of the infinite outcomes leads to the desired result. Scientists dismissed it as delusion, but those who saw him knew it wasn't madness. It was comprehension of something beyond human understanding. He spoke of a mother, not a woman, but a presence he called the mother of all. He spoke of the salmon swimming upstream, guided by an instinct it could not name. He said he was the same, a salmon that had escaped the current. Not divine, not monstrous, but an evolution of consciousness that had broken through the limits of time. Days passed. The agent, once skeptical, began to believe, especially after one strange moment. Leaving the facility late one night, He recalled the man's words about probability, and for no clear reason, he stopped before stepping into the road. Only then did he see the rattlesnake coiled in the shadows, inches from his boot. Had he taken one more step, it would have struck him in the knee. That night, for the first time, he wondered if the man could truly see the unseen. A week later, everything collapsed. Guards found the man's body, a gunshot wound to the head. It looked self-inflicted, but 24 hours later, he was alive again, sitting in the same chair, whole, unharmed. In the corner of the cell lay his old corpse, dried and shriveled like the husk of an insect. He was different now. His eyes were deeper, movements slower, as if carrying the weight of countless deaths. He claimed he had lived through infinite versions of himself, dying endlessly until he became one that could exist linearly, without decay. When asked whose blood had covered him when he was found, he said it had all been his own. To change, one must shed what is no longer needed. As the days passed, his body grew more alien. Then, one day, he realized he was a prisoner. Something inside him shifted. His face twitched, bones tightened, skin rippled with strange movement beneath the surface. Without hesitation, he broke his own arm, not in pain, but with precision. The bone extended outward like a blade of ivory. Alarms blared. Gunfire echoed through the concrete halls. The walls splattered red. Pieces of flesh moved across the floor, writhing and crawling, forming a grotesque shape. An enormous creature, nearly 3 meters tall, assembled from shattered bodies and blood. It moved, contracting and folding in on itself until it became something human. When the flickering lights stabilized, a woman stood where the monster had been. Her face was hauntingly familiar. The same sharp lines, the same stillness as the man who had died. She looked at the agent standing frozen in the doorway. The red alarm lights reflected in her eyes, the floor cold and slick beneath her feet. Then, without a sound, she turned and disappeared into the night. When the silence finally returned, the agent stood alone in the blood-soaked room, the old black umbrella still clenched in his hand, the one he had carried since the day he arrived. He knew there was no way to write this in an official report. No one would ever believe that he had witnessed something that should not exist. Later, he would tell himself that perhaps the man had not been a monster, but the next step, a glimpse of what humanity might become. The end result of evolution, stripped of fear and confined by no time. Since that night, the agent had never slept well again. Sometimes, in the stillness before dawn, he felt a presence watching him. Maybe the man, maybe the woman he became. He still lived somewhere in America, in a quiet house on the outskirts of Minnesota. He worked, breathed, and drank his morning coffee as always. But every time the rain began to fall, he remembered that night. And he always carried his umbrella, just in case the probability changed again.